right, we have some brand new polls in the race for the White House for you. A Quinnipiac poll shows Hillary Clinton still out in front of challenger Bernie Sanders and Vice President Biden, who is not now in the race. Those numbers are in line with what our Fox News polls find as well. But when that Quinnipiac poll put Vice President Biden up against the leading GOP candidates, Biden actually did better than Mrs. Clinton in those matchups. We'll take a look at that in a moment. But first, let's bring in Daniel Halper, online editor of the Weekly Standard and author of Clinton Incorporated, the audacious rebuilding of a political machine. Rebecca Berg is also with us, national political reporter for Real Clear Politics. Welcome to both of you. Rebecca, Hillary Clinton was the inevitable nominee of the Democratic Party. Is she still looking as invincible?
Well, absolutely not, John. And all you need to do is look at these polls, look at not only the way she's stacking up against Bernie Sanders and the potential candidacy of Joe Biden, but look at her favorability, which is underwater and not improving as this race goes on. And so she's not inevitable, she's not invincible, and that's why we see Bernie Sanders leading in many New Hampshire polls. That's also why we see Joe Biden now taking a good, hard look at this race, and it's looking increasingly likely that he might actually get in.
Well, if he reads the results of this Quinnipiac poll, he'll probably want to. If you take a look at the head-to-head matchups against some of the Republican candidates who are out there. All right, this is the nominee preference among Democratic voters. We had that a bit earlier. But when you stack Joe Biden up against people like Ben Carson, well, that's a 45-45 tie. He beats Carly Fiorina 46-43, beats Jeb Bush 46-41, and beats Donald Trump 51-40. Daniel, any question in your mind as to whether Joe Biden might think very seriously about getting into this race?
Well, we know for a fact that he's thinking very seriously about it. He hasn't been shy about it. I think these polls would suggest, you know, that he would have a decent chance of doing well. Up to this point in the race, Hillary Clinton's strongest argument has been that she's the most electable Democrat. Well, this poll disproves that. Hillary Clinton is no longer the most electable Democrat. Obviously, she has a great poll position in her party and should probably still win the Democratic nomination, but her strongest argument has been hampered, I think, a lot by these poll numbers. And so if you're Joe Biden and you're sitting in the vice president's residency tonight and you're looking at these polls, you got to think, I have a pretty darn good chance. I might as well do it. You're never going to get this kind of chance again. And so I kind of think he does get in the race. But obviously, that's a very personal decision, as he's made clear, and it's up to him.
With the caveat that he has not been out there campaigning and putting his positions on the line, we will note that the vice president seems to do better than Mrs. Clinton in most of these polling numbers. When you put her up in head-to-head matchups against the leading Republicans, you see there, she loses to Jeb Bush 44-42%, loses to Carly Fiorina by 1 percentage point, loses to Ben Carson by 7 percentage points. Only Donald Trump comes out on the losing end against Mrs. Clinton in this Quinnipiac poll. So what does that say to you, Rebecca, about the relative strength of Hillary Clinton versus Joe Biden?
Well, it shows exactly why a lot of Democrats are worried right now about Hillary Clinton and her strength as a candidate come the general election. She has struggled not only with likability, but in these polls with the question of, is she trustworthy? Is she honest? Is she authentic? And on those questions, Joe Biden beats her every single time. That's why we see his favorability so high in these polls. That, I think, is one of the biggest contributing factors to why he wins in these head-to-head hypothetical general election matchups.
Yeah,
but you also have to consider what would happen when he gets in the race. People tend to lose a little bit of their favorability when they enter the political arena. Once again, we might see that with him.
That's exactly right. Getting out there on the stump sometimes costs you some popularity. Rebecca Berg, Daniel Halper, thank you both.
Thank you, John.